Welcome back. Another day, another another live stream. Today, we're going to be looking at some cool design. We're going to be learning from that because this is the live stream that I tend to call Armchair Safari. It's a daily exploration of design I found online to try to become a better designer and for you to become a better designer. So what we do is we find cool stuff, we look at it in detail and try to figure out what's good about this, what should we learn to do, what's bad about this, what should we avoid doing, and does this work for the end user? Today we have two things to look at, just like yesterday, so let's dive in. The first thing is by J. Kurov. Can't pronounce that either, can't pronounce any of these things, which is annoying. I tend to suck at names, but anyway, really good designer, and he's made this really interesting cool. So he's made this really interesting cool. Yeah, I'm that tired. So if you want to join along, if you want to come with me on this journey and hear me ramble off stuff, or if you have any ideas or suggestions or thoughts, there is a chat somewhere around the video. The design you can find in the description below or in the next post, depending on where you're watching this. And now we're going to be checking out Jay Kurov's Kanban app, which is actually really, really interesting. So let me just rescale the window a little bit. Can you see that? Yes, I think you can. And let me just double check. Is the stream actually going out? Because it's not always, which is highly, highly annoying. But yes, it looks like it is going out. Cool. So let's dive into it. So he's just giving us that this is a Kanban app and that it's a refresh. So this is an actual app that exists. And this is the refresh design for that. That's all we know. So let's dive in. So straight off the bat, just let's get a feel for what is the first emotion you feel when you look at this. To me, it's like a feeling of fresh air almost. I go like, this feels calm. This feels clear. It feels like something that I could explore and get interested in. So there's a lot here that I think could work, but then let's dive into it. So what is actually good about this? So I really, really like the fact that what we're looking at is stacked views. So there's an outer shell of the actual app out here with the sidebar menu. And then there's another layer, which is the project menu for this. I guess it's the menu for this project or for the projects. This is a weird icon for projects, but I guess this has to be projects, plural. And then here we have the actual project, which is in this case Kamal's project. And we're actually seeing, this is interesting. So the breadcrumb up here doesn't show you where you are, but it shows you what kind of view you're in. So it's in projects, it's in task management for SaaS. And this is Kamal's project, SaaS. So I guess we are Kamal, and I guess the project's name is SaaS. It's really not clear. This is not great. I mean, I get this is a design, so it's probably a detail he didn't choose to do the work on because it didn't matter for the design. But it's still not clear. If you're someone coming to the design who don't know what you're looking at, stuff like this can be highly confusing. And yeah, I know this is super freaking annoying stuff. I have this problem constantly when I'm handing things over to people where they're basically rushing me to complete the design, and I end up showing them something where I know there's going to be logical inconsistencies, and then they come back and be like, hey, we don't get this. And I'm like, yes, I know. Anyway, let's go back to the good stuff. So what is good? I mean, I love the fact that it's a stepped pane because it's very clear to follow what is the separation of concern here. I probably don't need to care about this when I'm in this box. I probably will change this box if I change something in here, and I will probably change this box if I change something in here. Very clear, very good. But then it sort of fell apart a little bit for me. So the Kanban board itself looks fine, right? So this is a project. It has columns in it, and we have cards in the Kanban, and we can invite people to this board. There's a search, and I don't know what this is. It's probably like my user. So all of this makes sense and it's fine. And I can sort of sort this by date, apparently, which is a little weird in a Kanban board, but I guess it could be useful in this case because it looks like pretty much every card has some sort of deadline on it or date on it. I don't know if it's a deadline. But then, like, I am a little lost because, okay, so this is a project. It's called SaaS. Why do these things not correlate? And then when you look in this on this side of the screen, these are projects, and then you have team and personal, which is slightly strange that you have a switcher for it when you also have expanders for them down here. But then it gets even worse because the expanders have reasons. Great. It's pretty much all I use. And then we have all projects. Okay. That is a weird expander. Does that mean that this expander will be like a 200 projects? And then we have categories, which are not the same, right? So categories probably have more expanders underneath it. This is weird. And then we have archive and bin, which aren't they the same? That is slightly strange. So like this could be just because it's an example and Jay didn't care about this at this point. It's more about getting there's a visual feel for the app. Totally relevant. We don't know what level of design he was working on. We can only judge it from like a completely objective standpoint where we're thinking about it as it's a complete app or a complete design. So some of this criticism might not be applicable, right? It might be completely unfair to him. And that's fine. Because like if this is something that he thought about and went like, this doesn't matter, this is not what we're doing here anyway, then he can just disregard that. Because the point of showing a design is always to figure out what is the next thing that you need to fix and what is the next thing that you should be thinking about. And did the thing that you spent the time on actually work or not, right? And in this case, we don't know what he spent the time on. So I'm just going through everything that I can see. And some of that will be unfair, and some of that will be things that he might not have thought of. Who knows? We also have this really interesting indication of like the one that is selected, the selection indication is clear, but then we have this like notification thing, which is really interesting in a Kanban board. Why would a notification be in a Kanban board? Maybe a comment? Could be a comment. It doesn't show up on any of the cards, so we can't follow what this means, but it's a very interesting thing that it would be per project. Because that makes me feel like it's probably not a notification, because a notification should probably be like at this level, or maybe even up here somewhere where we don't see the full screen. Yeah, that's slightly strange. Another really interesting thing is he's mixing flat things and floating things. So in this case, we have a flat button and a flat card. We also have an empty state that is sort of floating on top of it, but it's clearly like a graphical empty state. But then we have these buttons up here. And look at these. Oh, zooming really crapped out. Can we open this in a new tab? Yes, we can. So, oh, cool. And we get a really big view. That's great. And you are seeing this, right? Good, good, good. Okay, so in this case, we have buttons here that are floating. So down here, it's mostly flat. There are a couple of things that have drop shadows, but it's mostly flat. It's almost all flat, except these floating buttons. And why are these floating? And they also seem to be floating on different heights. So these two are at the same height, which makes sense. It almost makes this search box looks like it's a cutout, which is very cool. Same thing is true with team. I think it's on the same height as search and command K, but this one is on a completely different level. And it's a double back. It's a double chevron back. I wonder what that means in this case. Like, does that mean we go back from projects to here? This is really confusing. Down here we have a new projects button, which is also floating on the same level as the double back. Yeah, this is slightly weird to me. So we do have this, like, things don't need to be on the same level. Like, we don't have to have perfect skeuomorphism. It's fine. Like, for instance, in this case, we have an outline card with things on top of it, and then we have another card on top of that, and then we have a third card that sort of looks like it's nested in the second card. And like, this is something that I would call super digital because it doesn't follow a skeuomorphic pattern. It doesn't follow something that we can recreate in the real tangible world. And I think that's totally fine. As long as it makes consistent logical sense within the app itself, it's totally fine. Um, so having a floating object on top of a flat object could just be super digital. But in this case, I just don't know what's going on. Why are they at different heights? And why are these things? Why is a switcher and the search icon and a shortcut and the back button 3D when the rest of it is flat? And why is the back button higher than the other things? This I do not understand. This is a weird choice to me, and I would love to understand. I would love to know why he ended up with this because I'm sure there was some sort of thinking behind it. It could also be, this happens to me a lot when you're changing from one pattern to the next, you kind of forget one button and suddenly everyone is confused. That always happens. But this is an example of when like tweaking this, like when fiddling around with 2.5x 2.5D reality doesn't really quite work because the logic falls apart and you're left wondering, what does this do? This is not a good feeling in design. Whereas on this side, we have a perfect example. This is like a really, really good example of how something should work in 2.5D. So here we have a completely flat surface, which is a menu. The selected object is a slightly 3D object on top of that. So the selected one, this would probably slide down for this icon. So the selected object is super easy to see. It literally pops out of the screen because it's 2.5D. And at the same time, the logo for the app is an additional level above that because this is super important. It is the brand. It is not something you're supposed to be interacting with, probably. So it makes a ton of sense. It's a beautiful application of 2.5D right here. Great example. And then we switch over and it's a not so great example. So I wonder if it might not just be the case that he was changing these and then like missed one or something like that. So we kind of ended up in this quasi landscape where we don't know what was going on. It would be interesting to know. Okay, so we've seen a couple of things that are good. We've seen a couple of things that are bad. I want to address two other things that I think could be improved. I'm looking at the visual hierarchy and the contrast of the thing, and I'm doing that by squinting at the screen and seeing like how much can I actually see if I'm like full squint or half squint. It's actually better than I assumed. I thought this would be too toned down, that I wouldn't see anything, but it's actually not the case. It totally works. The grays that are this toned down, still things are still grouped in a way that you can still see them, and you can still read the things that are strong, which are the things that you're supposed to read. So you can still follow the visual hierarchy. It's actually really good, really subtle, but the labels don't work. So the high works really well. The medium doesn't work at all, and the low is almost impossible to see. Now, there is a wonderful app you should be using to try this out called Sim Daltonism. Are you seeing that? You are not. How can I show you this? Let's just do the Sim Daltonism. Yeah, there you go. This is a wonderful, wonderful app that if you're on a Mac, you can just, I think it's free. You download it. It has all of the normal, the visual deficiencies that are quite normal. Deficiencies, how do you say? I don't know. The normal visual problems that people have. And you can overlay it on images and switch between them and see what happens. Like, when does the 74 number in this blob chart disappear? Well, if you're deuteranopic, then it will disappear. I think this means that you're missing like one of the colors. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Sim daltonism, you should definitely get it. So if we apply that to this design, where was it go? Here we go. Now, unfortunately, you can't see this. I'm going to have to fix this for future episodes. So if I go to, deuteranopia, you can see it. Deuteranomaly, you can see it. Protanopia, you can sort of see it. Protoanomaly, you can probably see it. Yeah, here you go. So tritanopia, yellow-blue confusion, just does not work at all. And tritanomaly, also yellow-blue confusion, just does not work at all. In monochrome, the low disappears completely. You can kinda see medium. High is perfectly well, works perfectly well. In partial monochromacy, Jesus Christ, partial monochrome, medium just completely disappears. So yeah, there are a bunch of issues with the labels, and I suspect he was a little bit quick picking up colors for that. Other than that, looks really well. So important, the most important thing, does this work for the end user? Now, he mentions here that this is something freshly designed for a client. Oh yeah, so freshly designed, it wasn't a refresh, so this might not be an app yet. But I think in general, I think this totally works. Like the structure is pretty much there. There is a little bit of an oddity about how many projects live where. And there's some questions about like the buttons. But those are really like, they're not showstoppers. These are things that I think Jay can solve pretty easily. And the rest, honestly, looks like a solid app. Yeah, I totally think this would work for the end user. If the navigation is clearer, I think this is a very solid Kanban app. Well done, Jay. And yeah, if you wanna see more cool Kanban stuff, head over to follow Jay Kirov. Next up is Mariana Castillo. Castillo? I don't know. So she's been doing he, I don't know, she has been doing an onboarding for a new app called Pierre. And Pierre is a product engineering tool, which I have never in my entire career ever heard of, like the category. So I suspect they're trying to define a new category. It's code hosting, review, docs, and CI in one place. Sounds actually pretty interesting. Also really love these dudes. So there's definitely a lot of things going on here. And well, let's just have a look at this and get a, oh, let's remove messages. There we go. Can we get, there we go. Okay, let's just have a look at this and get a feel. Awesome. How do you feel about it? I feel pretty good about this. So this is probably an onboarding wizard. We don't see the UI for the actual wizard step, so it could be some sort of animation on their website. I'm not quite sure. She writes this: "We're shipping a brand new onboarding flow for Pierre soon. There's nothing better than building your own work. These are some bits of design and built. The idea was to take advantage of the flow to present Pierre and some of its best features." Yeah. So we don't know what the flow is like, but I suspect it's an onboarding wizard. And yeah, I mean, it has to be, right? Because the first step is sign up with Google or with Magic Link, and you go in and you add your name, and then you add like a team space. Yeah. So this is an onboarding wizard, and there are no like next or back buttons because you're actually performing actions, which is really cool. And I love this, just hinting at what it can do while you're filling stuff in. There's also, we have some compression on this video, so we're not seeing fully like the design because there are some borders here that look like they're part of the design that I unfortunately can't make out properly. Maybe we can, Actually, what happens if I do this? Can I just open a video directly? No. Never mind. But I really love this general aspect of using your onboarding flow as a way to also like hint or foreshadow what the app is going to be helping you with. Really love that. And it just looks so incredibly well designed. Like each step has a bunch of small animations that are all really, really beautiful. Maybe slightly too slow, because you do get the feeling that you're watching animations, and like when it's a mouse pointer floating around, I get that. But when tags are popping up or text is being entered like this, it should probably be something you feel and not look at. So it could probably be a little faster, but in general, it just looks great. And I also love this like side by side the side-by-side aspect of it, because it really looks like I have almost like a book in front of me and I'm doing something on one side and reading on the other. It's really cool. And the grid of it is just really there's something about that that just speaks to me really, really well. Love how consistent the design is with the cards that you're filling in and the text that is just floating, and the text has this super clear visual hierarchy. Really, really love that. Yeah, I think this looks absolutely fantastic. This is a masterclass in a lot of ways. I would love to see how this looks on mobile, to see if it really, really works. Or maybe PR is something that you can't use on mobile. I don't know. It's a very cool example, and unfortunately, I can't learn too much from it because I can't zoom into it well enough because of the compression on X. This was probably a bad choice for the video, but it's still a really cool example of what you can do with onboarding, and I'm really inspired to try to steal some of this because it just looks absolutely amazing. Go follow Mariana to see more stuff like this, because she's clearly doing a lot of really, really cool design. And maybe you're interested in the product engineering tool. Check out pierre.co. And yeah, that's going to be it for today. There's no chat messages, so let me just wrap up by saying thank you so much for joining me today. And today we learned a little bit about keeping a clear navigation and the fact that you can actually use onboarding for foreshadowing, which is pretty damn brilliant. We also discussed drop shadows and visual issues. What's it called? Accessibility for visual impairment. And yeah, a lot of learnings today. Thank you so much, Mariana. Thank you, Jay Kurov. Go follow them. Their designs are in the description in the next message if you're on X. I do this live stream every day to try to become a better designer, and you can follow along by just jumping in, looking at the video, asking questions, looking at the designs. And yeah, that's it for today. I'll be back tomorrow. See you then. Have a good day. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye.